Hello homesteaders, it's me, John Green, showing you the next stage of building this floor or sealing it up. All the insulation is in, some stones, rocks, nothing organic. A few surprises for people in the future, and I've even marked where the beams are in case I cover it all up and then I don't know where they is. But it should be pretty straightforward. It's basically doing the floor the same way as we did the floor on this side. I kind of made a pretty obvious miscalculation, thinking that every beam of wood or every plank would be the same size. I put all of the wood the same size along here, and then it turns out they weren't really the same size. There's about 2 inches difference from this end, and the gap gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and that's about at least 2 inches, maybe more, on this end. So at some point I have to come along and cut a very straight line which will be parallel to this wooden beam that you see here, this support. Because that's quite a deviation. But then again, maybe the floor deviates that much. We don't really know, and this is the last part. Alright, there's no point cutting things until you know how much they need to be cut. So I could put in all of these floorboards today or tomorrow, and in the meantime, because not one room of an Irish house, an old one, or cottage, or any other old building will be perfectly square. It's just impossible. So sometimes it's a couple of inches, but like in the case of the back garden, it's about a foot difference from the front to the back. And it might not seem like a lot when it comes to a garden, but you know, this kind of precision is important when you're installing things like greenhouses and walkways and fences and all that other stuff. So today we're going to start putting the floor down, but I don't have enough of this corriboard, which is this corrugated plastic, to cover the whole floor. So I'm going to have to wait till after the Christmas break to complete it, but I'm sure we can do at least half of this today. Alright, so I'm going to set up the camera, and hopefully you get a pretty good view of what I'm trying to do here, and it should be pretty self-explanatory. Remember, you can't walk between these beams, you have to walk on top of them because they're load bearing, and the stuff underneath is not load bearing. Once you put the wooden boards up, once you put all of these things down on the floor, the whole floor will be completely supported and much structurally strong and trustworthy, whereas at the moment it's still a bit of a danger zone. When you look at the step, even this step needs to be fixed. Things need to be replaced, taken away, remolded, you know, new concrete, new steps. I don't mind doing that, but each thing has to happen in a sequence. It's very important that you don't get the sequence wrong, because if you try to do something too soon, like build a doorway before you build the rest, you might find that it doesn't fit or work with the rest of the building. Yeah, it's just, you got to think out your sequence, and I think that's just as important as the work itself, the timetable in which you do it. All right, I'll set up the camera. That part's easy. I just had to sticky tape those bits of corriboard together, and now I start putting in the floor proper. there's a reason you only do one plank at a time. You know, you'd think it'd be practical to put all of the planks down and just screw them all in. But you know, if little problems arise, like at the moment I missed the beam, now I've just got a screw floating around down there. I can catch it easier when there's only one beam, or one plank. If I cover the whole floor, I won't even know where all of these beams are, because they'll be covered up essentially. So I can always pull back the plastic to see where I am. And keep an eye on the positions of the screws. Now, removing screws that are just spinning around is a bit of a pain. I have to do it anyway, but it's much easier if you know where every beam is. You'll never miss it. So take your time and don't do it too quickly. I mean, it's kind of an all-day affair. Even though this will be done in this portion of it will be done in about an hour. You know, take your time and don't, you know, rush off and do other things in the meantime. Check emails and whatnot. I think it's just important to go with the flow when it comes to an Irish cottage or a renovation. Any kind of cottage renovation requires a fair bit of patience. So I'm going to try to get this screw out. This might work. As predicted, the room's not particularly square. Look, you can see each is like stepped. It's because this back wall dictates, you know, as much wood has to be against that as possible. And then these things are stepped because the wall is askew. Let's see if we can film this process a little closer. It doesn't make it more interesting, But you know, if you've been with me up to this point, you might be curious to see. Righto, you probably notice when I drill, putting these long ass 100mm or 10cm screws into, are they 10? Yeah, I think they are. Doesn't even tell me. Anyway, these big screws, they have to go, because they have a tapered head, I drill them past the point of the surface of the floor so that there's a hole, and that hole is not important because at some point later there'll be another cover on this, something soft going over the top of this. These holes won't matter. But going down further than the surface means that there won't be any issues with a metal head sticking up. If later on I need to plane the top of it to make it smooth or something, there won't be any metal parts. Everything will be below the surface by about 2 or 3 millimeters. viewers, we get down 5 planks, and then we ran out of corriboard. I do have one piece, but at this point, you know, there's really no need. I'm trying to look at my monitor. There's really no need to rush. As you can see, I've left a strip of the corriboard exposed, so the next piece of corriboard that goes down, I'll use the silage tape, which is just wide PVC tape. Silage tape in Ireland. Silage is all of the dry food that the larger animals are going to eat over the winter. You know, hay. Anyway, this is for the big black bales of hay that you see on the west coast of Ireland. This is how you tape them up if necessary. It's also good for other stuff. So I'm using it to stick together the corriboard, and in a couple of weeks, when I get my next couple pieces of corriboard, I can finish the floor. It's going to be done. It's really cool. I bought 1,000 of those 100mm screws. There might even be 12mm. I mean 120mm. So 12 centimeters. What does it say? Yep, 100 millimeters. They go quite deep, because as I tried to explain before, I don't know if you saw my other video about renovating an Irish cottage, but this particular wood was worth salvaging. Not salvaging, but keeping, because the wood itself still had integrity. There had been an insect infestation of termites or something, but those things died off at some point. I guess they ate all the wood they could handle, or the owners put arsenic down, or who knows what happened. But at some point, maybe even 40 years ago, there was no termite problem. So these floor beams we keep, and also because all of the floor beams are measured properly for this particular space, and they're already flat. I wouldn't want to mess with something so well done. I'll give a big thumbs up to the Canadian YouTube channel Home Renovision, because he was, that guy on there is the guy who gave me the idea that, you know, if something is, let's say 80% good, you should keep it. You know, so if this floorboard has a few little holes and chips and things in it, that's not a big deal, because once I put down all of this insulation, support, new floor, the integrity will make the whole floor stronger, and I won't have to worry, because all of these floorboards have been treated with anti-pest treatment, anti-bugs and mold and mildew and all those things, because I'm very conscious of this granary being sort of a moist building because of the roof, and therefore everything needs to be treated for wet, cold, moisture and mildew, as well as bugs, termites, you know, boring beetles and things like that. I'll leave you there today, because basically my job is done. I'm ready for the next stage. I'll make another video then, but by then it'll be probably 2021. So if I don't see you before that, Merry Christmas, that's tomorrow. Happy New Year's. I personally will be letting off fireworks, and which is an unusual thing on this side of the island. But you know, we're going to celebrate our own way. If we don't see you before then, Happy Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, Happy New Year, Happy Halloween, all of those things that we enjoy, and I'll see you in 2021. My name is John Green. This is Green Ideas on the west coast of Ireland, and I am renovating an old Irish cottage. Thanks for tuning in. Subscribe if you haven't.